Michael Wolff, welcome to the Jazz Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
It is our profound pleasure. We just listened to the track Chill from your album Bounce, which I thought if I say that now, then our lovely listeners will know what it is that we just heard.
Right.
Tell us a bit about yourself, Michael.
Wow. What do you want to know, man? I've had a long career as a jazz pianist and composer. I started out at just turning 20 years old as a sideman, pianist with Cal Jader, who's a Latin jazz vibist in the 70s. And then I went on to play with Ayrton Moreira and Flora Purim. And then I was Cannibal Adderley's last pianist. And that was a fantastic experience. I loved him. I'd grown up knowing all his music. So when I got that gig, I was 22 and I felt like that was where I was meant to be. And then he died during the first year I was with him, unfortunately. So then I went on to play with Jean-Luc Ponty, Joe Farrell. Then I was in the Thad Jones Mel Lewis band. And then for 2 years, I played with Sonny Rollins. And that was in kind of late-ish 70s. And that was a fantastic experience. Sonny, we were just discussing it. He's such a great guy. He and I are still good friends. I have a new book out called On That Note, and he gave me a great blurb. He said, Michael Wolff is one of the best musicians I ever played with, and I hope this book sells because he owes me money. And I thought, that's the hippest blurb anybody could say, man. He's such a cool jazz guy.
That is fantastic.
And we, I talk with Sonny all the time, and it's really a lot about life and, everything, everything in life, what happens afterwards and stuff like that. So he's very deep. And we talk about music and, whatever. So he remembers everything about my 2 years in the band. And so we have a lot of fun talking about that. Anyway, so after Sonny, then I went on the road for 5 years as musical director and conductor and jazz pianist for Nancy Wilson, the singer. And that was a great gig. I really learned to do a lot of different things. I had to learn to conduct. I had to learn to arrange for orchestra and big band. And then I had to learn to sing duets with her. And, so I was an on-the-job training guy. It wasn't like now when you go to a music program and in college. When I went to college, it was all classical. There was Berklee School of Music, which I didn't go to, and it wasn't considered that great at that time. And then I went to UCLA and LA and UC Berkeley, and it was just studying classical music and then doing jazz on my own. I always did it on my own. I always loved it. I started when I was 4 years old. My dad was an amateur musician and, playing jazz tunes and blues and stuff like that on piano. So that was really it. And then after Nancy Wilson, I took about 5 years off in New York City. I was 30 years old, 31. And I decided, I don't want to end up conducting, Anne Margaret or somebody like that in Las Vegas. I want to be a musician. But for about 5 years, I hung around New York. I did stand-up comedy. I did some acting. But I mainly just made my living teaching, vocal coaching singers. It was painful, but it's what I needed to do. And then I got this gig from this guy who had been our opening act with Nancy Wilson, Arsenio Hall, who was a comedian, and he had a talk show. So I did that for 5 years. And I was his band leader and, musical director. It was an amazing experience. That was from 89 to 94. And that way I got to play with, all millions of pop people. I got to play with, become good friends with Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea and Wayne Shorter and all those people, great jazz musicians.
Were you like booking those for the show?
Yeah, they would come and sit in with our band, play with our band, or, do all kind of different things. Miles came on, Miles Davis, who was my hero. He didn't play with our band. He played with his band, but I got to hang out with him and become friends with them.
How was that?
Oh, awesome. It was when he had the Amandla album out, and it was just amazing. I always loved everything Miles did.
Yeah.
So, I just had this rich, varied experience in life, and then after the Arsenio Hall show, I decided, okay, I was about 40, 40, 41. I decided, I'm going to just concentrate the rest of my life, basically being a jazz pianist and composer. I mean, I've done some film and TV scores as they've come along, but that's primarily what I've concentrated on. I met my wife on the Arsenio Hall show. Her name is Polly Draper. She's an actress. She was a star of a TV show in America called 30 Something. And she's done a lot of acting and writing and directing. And now my sons, Nat Wolff and Alex Wolff, who are 27 and 24, are big movie stars and TV stars, acting. and they're also musicians. So we have a family, you know, of 4 freelancers, basically, you know.
It's wonderful when the whole family's doing the same.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we would all play together. My son Nat's in town. We're going to get together tonight and hang out. He lives in LA. I'm in New York mostly. They travel all over, and you know, so we were talking about, I had cancer, a really bad cancer in my early 60s. It took me 4 or 5 years to really deal with it. I almost died, and I had an amazing doctor that came up with a treatment for it, so I was cured.
Was it a case that they didn't? Sorry, I just wondered, when you were diagnosed, then was it not even the case that there was necessarily a treatment that they thought would even work?
Well, I was first diagnosed with a lymphoma, of non-Hodgkin's, follicular non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which apparently they would say, oh, well, you know, this is not really curable, but absolutely treatable. And what we did, they didn't even treat me in the beginning. They go, well, just wait till you get sick, then we'll treat it. It'll go away for like 3 or 5 or 10 years, and it'll come back, and you'll be able to live a long life with this. I went, okay. But then I just got sicker and sicker and sicker, and the treatment really didn't work. And I went up to Memorial Sloan Kettering, and they did another biopsy and said, oh no, you have a rare cancer called histiocytic sarcoma, untreatable, no treatment, and you got 3 months, you know, to live. And then I got with this amazing doctor up there, Dr. Marino Gounder, and it was a thing they did at that time called a genomic blood test to find out mutations you might have. At that time, it was kind of a trial. They were just starting it. And they, at the very end of it took 6 weeks to come in. At the very end, when I was dying in the hospital, they found a mutation that he decided probably was causing my cancer. And he found a little pill, a tiny little pill about as big as a sugar pill that was used for something else. He said, let's try it. And it cured me. I mean, I was in 10 days, it was 80% reduction of the tumors. And then I took it for a couple of years, and now I haven't taken anything for 3 or 4 years. And he said, it's gone, you know.
That's absolutely remarkable, just from a pill.
A miracle. Yeah, he wrote an article about me in the New England Journal of Medicine, and it changed the treatment now for everybody that gets this disease. Now they're cured because of that.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, that's how you end up writing a memoir, obviously, which
yeah, when I came out of that, I mean, I'd already started writing a couple of years before that, and it took me a couple of years to really, you know, I'm not a writer, I'm a musician. So it took me about 2 years of writing to find my voice, you know, to find that I knew I wanted to sound like me and not like a magazine or not like a formal, you know, I wanted it to be the way I speak.
Yeah.
So, you know, I learned a lot. I mean, and then I just kind of went through my life, and then, you know, as a friend of mine who writes memoirs said, hey, it's your memories, you know, you put in what you want to put in. It was a really, really great experience. I have a copy of it here. On that note.
Yes.
It's on Amazon.com, or I don't know, you know, wherever you can order. It's digital only.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, they sell the real book, but it's not like going to be in a bookstore, you know?
Yeah. But could you order it off of like your website?
Yeah, I think you could. I'm going to have to look into that. Probably you could go to michaelwolff.com and it'll have a link, you know.
We'll put a link in the comments of the show. Yeah. So if any of our listeners are wanting to check it out, just scroll down.
So after that, I thought, oh man, I was so lucky to be alive. And I teach at New York University in the music department, the jazz department. And, you know, I have a really great trio with this bassist, Ben Allison, and a drummer, Alan Mednard. And we, you know, recorded that album you were mentioning, Bounce. And we did one before that called Swirl. And so I just did San Francisco Jazz, SF Jazz recently. And, you know, we're doing gigs around New York. And then hopefully we'll, you know, because of COVID, I lost 4 or 5 years for cancer. Then I come back. And then I lost 2 years because of COVID. I had all these tours planned, Europe, and everything got canceled. So I'm hoping to get back, come back to London, go to Paris, you know, all the places that I usually play. Because I just love to play live. I mean, I love to record. I have over 20, you know, CDs or albums out or whatever. You know, I recorded when I left that Arsenio Hall show in the 90s, I made 2 albums with Christian McBride and Tony Williams. Got trio albums because I really wanted to get back, establish my jazz, you know, identity. But so, you know, I've well, it's a long career and a long life. And I met my wife on the Arsenio Hall show, and that's when we got married, and we have our boys, Nat Wolff and Alex Wolff. So that's what's happening.
Wow. So do you feel like it must have been so frustrating to be suffering so like a terrifying cancer that you're not sure is going to get cured, and all these thoughts about if it is cured, what am I going to do? What am I going to want to do and play and go places? And then to get through that and then go through COVID and have all those plans, recovery is very hard.
It made me angry, with what I was sick. I mean, I was in bed at one point for 8 months. I could just barely get out of bed just to go to the doctor. And that was where I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. You know that expression? I did not see that it was going to get better. And I watch TV and I see these 80-year-old actors selling stuff. I go, why are these guys so healthy? Piss me off,
Yeah.
Maybe that helped to be mad. But I was mostly just destroyed by Percocet and prednisone and all the drugs and being up all night, sweats, there's just tons of symptoms. So when I finally started getting better, which was a slow process, because even though the cancer went away, I'd been on so many drugs and I had so many side effects. And so, and then when I started feeling really well and was able to tour, then COVID happened. And I was like, man, I mean, obviously I can't take it personally. Everybody suffered through that time. So I like to think that I could be big about it, but really it pissed me off, man. It really made me mad.
Yeah.
And so now, it's still, I mean, I still wear my mask on gigs. Right now they're I don't know how it is in England and London, but they're lifting a lot of these mask mandates. I mean, it's not totally lifted. If you fly, everybody wears it, which I'm really glad, wears a mask. And I went to Lincoln Center Jazz, Disney's this week, and you have to show your vaccine cards and stuff like that, but then you don't have to wear a mask. So,
yeah.
Who knows, man? Everybody's affected by COVID. I don't know how it is in England right now, but you tell me.
We've like scrapped everything. There's no restrictions. It's all just that optional now. But obviously most people tending to not wear masks, in public spaces or anything. It's hard when you're if your like immune system is in any way vulnerable. I mean, like you, I was very lucky to get like the jabs like really early on and have as much like safety as you could hope for. But it's scary when it's so much out of your control as well,
Definitely, man. And the whole thing, so many musicians I know, their whole lives are just traveling. I'm really close with Fred Hirsch, all these like Schofield, all these guys, nobody could go anywhere, man.
Yeah.
I had like I was saying, European tour, SF Jazz, the Bay Area, San Francisco, and starting in March of 2020, everything, I canceled a little early and then it would have been canceled anyway. I could just see the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
So now it does feel like things are coming back. I just played at this place, SF Jazz, 2 weeks ago, but they make the audience wear masks.
Right.
So I don't really know. I don't know. It seems like there are more variants coming. I hope that we're over the hump, but who knows, right?
Yeah, I know.
Play music, you got to play it in front of people. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. It's really, like you said, like, I can't remember if we said it on air or not, how much you enjoy playing live, that's.
Oh God, it's the best, right? I mean, what did you do for those 2 years besides have a baby?
Yeah, I had a baby. I put a lot of energy into my teaching. I've always enjoyed teaching, but it gave me a chance with my students who were learning on their own to like start putting them into groups and classes more in the evenings, and then having like my old teachers kind of come and like share, like I would ask all my students to learn a set piece, let's say, and then get the composer to come in on Zoom, try and make the most of the fact that we're all separate, but everyone had more time free, that we could like learn differently and try and figure out how to keep my students sort of motivated to practice and play. And
were you teaching totally on Zoom?
Yeah, there was a period of 3 or 4 months where, especially at the very first lockdown, everything stopped, school stopped and clubs stopped, but there was no experience of this before. So there was nothing set up. And because I work self-employed, I could just carry on. And then it meant for most of the students that I teach, the only thing they had in the week for at least a month or two was their music lesson and nothing else. So they were practicing loads, which gave me a real buzz, and it gave them a buzz that there was like, you couldn't go out, you couldn't run around, you know, you had your one hobby of your instrument was something that was still yours regardless. And so cool. Yeah, so I watched a lot of episodes of ER as well, you know, that old.
Oh yeah, we got into watching a lot of Netflix, man, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, one thing I did, you know, I've been a professional musician since I was young. So I had spent a little time studying some stuff I really hadn't studied. I was listening a lot and analyzing some harmony stuff, and I'm really into Oliver Messiaen's, you know, harmonic concept, you know, just stuff like that, and Herbie Hancock, and you know, really getting deeper into it, because usually I was just working, you know, and I'm composing and all that. So I just took a little more time to, it just gave me some options to do that. And then I did a lot of videos, educational videos, like on you know, Facebook and YouTube and stuff like that, because I already have a bunch of stuff online. You know, just things that I was thinking about and playing. And I did one on the 3 pedals of the piano. Exactly what do they do? People always ask me that. What are these pedals do?
Yeah.
Stuff like that, you know, that I would never have thought to do before.
Yeah.
Well, I should do something, you know. But yeah, it was a crazy time, man. I did compose a concerto during the time for jazz piano trio and string quartet.
Oh wow.
In 3 movements, called Pandemia. And that was really fun. I performed it this, you know, in January, and I'm going to perform it again in June. So that was it's about a 20-minute piece. That was an achievement for me. I'd written for orchestra, but I'd never written actually for string quartet. So I really enjoyed doing it. I'm really slow. I'm not like just whipping it off, you know. I really work it, but it came out well. I was happy with it.
Did you listen to any string quartets before starting?
Oh yeah, I listened to tons of music. I got really into minimalism, which was like the 60s and 70s, you know, classical music, people like Philip Glass and Terry Riley and stuff. So I got heavily into that, but I listened to so many string quartets, you know, Beethoven, Bartok, Webern, Satie, all the French. I love the French composers. I listened to theirs. You know, yeah, I listened to a lot.
Would you analyze
a lot of scores?
Right. I was going to ask.
I mean, I do have some scores. I actually, I know it's crazy, but I spent quite a long time studying Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. I do have the score. So I really wanted to just, because it's 2 themes, da 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 da, and then da 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 da, and he does this whole piece. I go, this guy's genius, you know. So when I teach jazz improvisation, I refer people to that, because you can take one little idea and then expand on it. You know, you don't have to keep, oh, now I got to do this idea. It's like what I call pearls before swine. They're just throwing out all these ideas. And I said, well, if you listen to Sonny Rollins, particularly, he was a theme and development guy. He'd come up with a melody, come up with a little idea, and then he would just be like a dog with a bone, like, just stick with it and develop it and go up a half step or whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
So I wanted to really study that piece particularly, and it was educational.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I think in history, all of the best composers who have been really like economical, like Bach, with, you know, 4 notes that would be moved, like, you know, and you'd create a piece of it, that is actually more impressive, I think, than a composition with 50 ideas. But it would be, you know, you can't kind of understand as a listener what's going on if there is nothing but new ideas and no exposition of the existing material.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I also studied there's a piece I love, Ravel's Piano Concerto in G, and the second movement is gorgeous. And, you know, with the Impressionists, some of it was more textural and colors. I have a thing called synesthesia. So I see colors for notes and days of the week and months of the year and numbers, you know. It just always had colors attached to them. I didn't try to do it. I didn't know everybody didn't do it. So for me, when I listen to a piece, particularly like Ravel or somebody, and it's in G, and to me a G has a certain color, you know, I think it's very textural and colors and stuff like that. And that's beautiful too. I mean, not that they don't have melodies, they do, but I'm cool with that too. You know, if it's just gorgeous, I'll go for gorgeous or whatever it is, intense. You know, Rite of Spring, dun dun dun, dun, you know, whatever it is. You know.
So was there a moment you remember realizing that you had synesthesia, that somebody put a word to it and you were like, whoa, that's
that was just kind of interesting. I read about it in the New York Times actually. And there was years ago. I mean, they're saying, oh yeah, 10% of people have this. I've met a few people that have it, not a lot, you know, but it's one of those things that if you don't even think about it, if you have it, I just always had colors for the days of the week. Oh, now it's a Wednesday, it's blue. Thursday is tan. Friday is a nice dark blue. Saturday's red. You know, I just always had it. And when I talk to other people with synesthesia, they don't have the same colors on the same days. Or they have their own sort of system. But, you know, with notes, I think it's pretty interesting. And keys, I mean, I don't have perfect pitch, but I do have that color thing, you know.
Do you think about it? No, I don't. I sadly would love it. That would be great. But I noticed in my own experience, a lot of people with perfect pitch tend not to play transposing instruments like saxophones, trumpets, because, you know, I guess it would be strangely tormenting to learn something that's constantly sounding at the wrong pitch as a student.
Possibly. I mean, I wish I did have perfect pitch, but, you know, I mean, I have a pretty good ear. It's not the greatest, you know, but I hear the way I hear, you know, I hear with kind of everything related to a root, or sometimes I'll create on top like an upper structure and I'll create roots up there and then I can hear it, you know.
So I have a question about your albums. It's not really a question, it's a statement. With COVID taking away all of the live music, the albums you've released since you have made your miraculous recovery, have they taken on even more kind of emotional weight because you couldn't play live while you were writing and recording them?
Well, you know, I didn't write or record any albums during the pandemic because I couldn't get together with anybody. So I had recorded one 10 years before. It was called Live at Vitello's. It was a club in LA with Mark Isham on trumpet, Mike Clark on drums, and John B. Williams on bass. And I'd recorded this beautiful live album. And I really didn't have a time or a place to put it out. Now, I put my records out on Sunnyside Records, which is a really good label here. So I just emailed Francois, who owns Sunnyside. I said, look, I don't have anything new. Can I send you this? And he goes, and see what you want to do. He goes, let's put it out. I mean, you know, nothing's happening. So I really didn't do any recording. I haven't even done any recording since pandemic. Right now, I've been working. I finished my book during that time. And it took 9 years to write this book, you know. Way harder than making a record, way harder, you know. I mean, I can make a record a year or whatever, but this was super hard. So now I'm thinking about some projects I want to do. I want to record this string quartet thing, and I'm writing some new music to be with jazz piano trio and string quartet, so I can do a complete album.
Oh wow, great!
35 or 40 minutes of that, and then I'm gonna. I've been talking with Ron Carter about trying to do something, and you know, I want to do an album called something like Truth and Beauty, which was something that Bill Evans said. And I want to do a real gorgeous album, you know, not like a burner, just like that's my goal.
Is that with strings, that one that you're thinking?
No, that one wouldn't be with strings.
Okay.
The one with strings it's going to be gorgeous too, but more classical maybe mixed with jazz. I don't know. I think it's unique. But the one I would do with Ron would be more of a jazz album, or, you know, but just beautiful stuff. Yeah. Maybe with a quartet, or I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm working on that right now. And then I'm friends with Sheila E., and I'd love to do a Latin record with her, kind of Latin jazz. So we're discussing that sort of logistics, you know. So that my friend Ray Oviedo would produce it, who's a guitar player. So yeah, that's what's happening.
So Bounce, when was that recorded?
It was recorded in my apartment.
Right.
It was recorded probably the year or so before. I'd have to look on it and see. I don't have it in front of me, but the year before COVID, maybe. Right. And then, you know, we mixed it. But that was a really fun experience. You know, the album before that with the same trio called Swirl was recorded in a live setting in front of an audience at this Yamaha piano salon because I'm a Yamaha artist. But this one I recorded at home, and I have this amazing. You can see this piano behind me. It's
Yes.
this Hamburg Steinway B. It's amazing, and I bought it when I was really sick and didn't know if I was going to make it. My wife goes, "You got to," I had inherited some money from my mom.
Right.
And she said, "God, I've never spent a bunch of money like that on a piano." She goes, "You got to do it, man."
Yeah.
So I got this piano, and every day I try to get up and play, a few scales on it or something. So it means a lot to me, but it sounds so good. It's the first time I've had a piano that's better than going to the gig,
Oh, wow.
So I decided, let's just try recording here. So there's a TV show called Saturday Night Live here. That's a live show. And so some of the guys that do that sound came over and set up in my dining room where I'm sitting now. And we recorded over 2 days. So it came out great. They just put up a few baffles with just piano, bass, and drums, but beautiful sounding album. And it was really fun to do,
It's a nice feeling recording at home as opposed to a studio, I think.
Yeah. You're not all pressed for time and it's like, $100 an hour or $200 an hour or anything like that. You're just playing.
Yeah. Would you record at home again for another project?
I would. I was talking to Ron Carter about it, actually. He kind of wants to do that. But the only thing I don't have is really good separation. Everybody's in the same room. I have a big living room and we put up baffles. I kind of like to go with Ron in a studio. But yeah, I would definitely do it. I'm doing a project with Alex Foster, who's a saxophonist, who's on this TV show, Saturday Night Live. And we grew up together, since we were teenagers. And we're doing a project of taking classical pieces like Copland's clarinet concerto, Brahms clarinet piece, but he plays it on soprano. I played on jazz it up on piano. And, that I think could do here for sure.
Be nice to record on your beautiful piano.
How about you? Do you record at home? Do you do any recording at home?
I am in the process. I was just saying before we started that I'm just sitting in our new house here. Actually had a like conversion guy over this morning to look at like soundproofing the garage so that my wife and I can put a grand piano in there and kind of make a proper like dedicated music space in the house. That would be a dream for us.
Is your wife a musician?
Yeah, she's a pianist, and like you, she's always like wanted a grand piano. We've never like thrown an absolute ton of money at anything like that. Yeah. We've never had the space to before, but I want that. I want that for her and for us. In the house, it would be amazing.
Great.
Yeah. So.
Well, we renovated. We're in this apartment in New York, and we actually have the whole floor now. And I raised my kids here. We bought it a long time ago. And so in the other room that used to be the master bedroom, I made a complete soundproof recording studio with a booth and everything. So it's mostly for composing and stuff. I've done film scores in there, but I've recorded some stuff in there. It's cool.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think it's great to be able to stop and just like put the kettle on and, switch off so quickly. So how did you know when the memoir was done? At what point did you decide?
Oh, that is a really good question. You could keep writing on something just like an album. You could keep writing on it forever. I could have. Well, what happened was when I first wrote this thing, it started out years ago. I was going to write a how-to book about being a musician. So I wrote how to be a leader, how to be a sideman, how to conduct, how to deal with the business. Because I've done so many gigs, I've been on TV. So I was just kind of talking about all that. And I wrote about 100 pages and I showed it to my friend who's an author, Ann Hood. And we were discussing it. And she said, well, I really think the best part of it is the stories around it. And I said, I agree. I don't really want to write a how-to book. I want to write my life, my stories. So we threw out those 100 pages and I just started writing. And, I didn't write in a chronological way. I just wrote what came to me. I would sit down every day at the computer and I didn't spend hours a day or anything. I'd spend a half hour, an hour and just say, okay, today I'm going to write about my dad. I'm going to write about my mother. I'm going to write about Cannonball Adderley and my time with him, or I'm going to write about the Arsenio Hall show, or, I wrote all that stuff. And originally it ended like in the late 90s when I moved back to New York. I was in LA doing TV and then my wife and I got married and had kids and came back to New York. And so I had my book. That was my book. You know, I had my growing up. I grew up in the South in New Orleans and Memphis, and then we moved to Berkeley, California in the 60s. So I was involved with all the political stuff going on there. And then I went, to college, and I went on the road. So I gave it to an agent, the book, I was referred to, and he said, "Well, it was a very well written book, and I enjoyed it a lot. But usually memoirs, and I have Tourette syndrome, so I did write about Tourette syndrome in that." But he said, "Usually memoirs have something really difficult someone overcomes." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to have to write about this cancer thing, which I didn't want to write about."
So you'd
And
left
then
it out completely until that point?
Yes, I just thought, good enough. It's a memoir. It's not really an autobiography, but oh, so I kind of debated if I wanted to. It was such a traumatic experience that I really want to go back and deal with it. But so one day I was in the waiting room. I'm a patient at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and I still go in for checkups every year. That's everything's cool, but I got to go there. So I was in the waiting room one day, and I just started typing on my phone memo, which what ended up being the first chapter of the book, about a certain experience I had when I was dying in the ambulance. And then I decided, you know what? I'm just going to do it, man. So I wrote about 60 pages, the whole journey, man, the whole thing. But I didn't know how to put it in the book. So I just had that. And then I thought, well, wait, if I'm going to do that, then I've got to fill in the time from the late 90s until this. So then I went back, and my wife had created a TV show for Nickelodeon called The Naked Brothers Band, which was in London, which my sons were the stars of, and I played the father on it. And anyway, so I did a whole thing on that, so it kind of just came together in weird ways. And then I got an editor, a really good editor. I said, "Could you help me organize this? Because I don't know what to do." And I said, "I think this one little chapter should be the beginning." Anyway, so she went through everything and said, "I think you need to write more of this or more of that, and make this a little longer." So then it was a whole other couple of years. And at a certain point, I felt like, I think I've really got it, So I got this publisher, Redwood Books, which are really great, and they have an editor. But then, also during the pandemic, I wrote this book called Caste, which was really how in the United States, the racism here is like the caste system in India. And I had grown up in the South with a lot of racist people and relatives. So I thought, and I had dealt with that, but I thought, I'm going to really dig into that. So I kept kind of, it's kind of like a composition. When I write on a big piece of music paper, but it's not necessarily linearly. And then I write an arrow. Maybe it should go here. Maybe this bar should be reversed. And I'm always doing that. I'm always messing around with it, trying to find like a puzzle, how, like doing a crossword puzzle or something. How am I going to put this together? So that's what kept happening with this. And even as it was at the publishers, I'd say, "Can I still change something?" I thought, I'm going to write a little more about my mother. There's some things I remembered. And so up until the very end, I was still dicking around with it,
Yep.
I mean, I'll be honest, I would just think about, how do I read through it again? Maybe I should, it's I got it as good as I could get it,
With regard to those pages on your suffering cancer, did it feel in any way therapeutic to go back and deal with it?
Well, I have a therapist, because when I was diagnosed with the first cancer, I just had a feeling inside that I was in for a ride, a bad. So I found this therapist who's really good, nice guy, and very active. And so when this issue came up, I said, I'm really hesitant to write about it. And he said, "Well, it's inside you anyway." So was it therapeutic? No. But I was happy that I did it. I was happy to have it out. And maybe the therapeutic part was that it made me less afraid of it. But, honestly, I have PTSD from it. You know what I mean? It's like, I was kind of hoping, I'm going to get well and it'll just be in the past. But it's not that way. It was so powerful and it was so recent. It's been 3 years that I've been cured. So it's just, I think in a certain way, it's been a gift too, because I really realized how much my family means to me and the people I love. And And I love music as much as I love music. I feel differently about it. It's kind of easier in a way. I say, okay, I'll do music, you know? And I feel like, I mean, I was always a really great performer and composer and all that, but I feel like now it's just somehow lighter, you know, it's just not as intense or something.
That's really interesting because I feel like that. When I play, I enjoy it. When I record stuff, I enjoy it, and I'm just happy to do the process. But I don't really feel any stress attached to it.
Right.
That the other thing I think that really resonates with me that you just mentioned is the recovery period after cancer is really, I didn't realize how brutal it was and how much harder that would be actually, at least from my perspective. The illness was like everyone understood it and the doctors told you what would happen and how to feel. And when you're out the other side, you're kind of on your own, and it's very, very hard.
Yes. Oh. I mean, I was lucky I have this, you know, psychotherapist because he's helped me. But, you know, it was so difficult on my family. My youngest son was in high school. My oldest son was starring in his first major film. He was a star. It was called Paper Towns for Sony. He was touring around, and you know, my wife had to do so much to take care of me. I mean, you know, it just took it out of us, you know.
Yeah.
And it took a lot out of me. I mean, I can't say that and plus I'm older now. I can't say I'm totally the same as I was. I'm not, you know, but you know, it's been like quite a few years since that started, maybe 7 or 8 years. So, you know, part of it is aging, but you know, I'm just luckily I'm here, and I felt like every day if I look out the window or I go for a walk, I want to notice something different, or you know, I think my wife says I'm a much sweeter person. I think I had a worse temper before and it was more difficult, you know.
Yeah. It's nice to think you've changed for the better.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I like to think.
Oh, brilliant. So tell us about working with your family then, because obviously you mentioned before the Naked Brothers band, the Nickelodeon show. What was it like to be able to spend time together, but also be like working together? Does that change the dynamics?
Well, yes, it did. They were young when we did the first little movie. We just did a little movie, family movie for fun when they were 6 and 9. So that's 18 years ago when we started that. And then we did the movie, edited it. It was based on my older son, Nat's composing, because he was a songwriter. Even at 6 years old or 8 years old, he was writing amazing music. And then his brothers started doing the same thing. And now they're singer-songwriters. They're not jazz musicians like we are. I mean, they can do it, but they do it differently. You know, it's just they play piano and guitar, and the youngest one plays drums too. And they can go between piano and guitar on any song. And it doesn't seem to matter to them. But getting to work with the family was awesome. It was, I mean, except for they were irritating little crazy kids because they were, you know, when we were doing the show, I think they were 8 and 11, you know, so they were wild little boys, you know, and we didn't want to inhibit them. We didn't want little kid actor types. We just like go wild, you know, but it was hard for me because I played the father and I wasn't a good actor and I had to learn my lines. It was so easy for them to learn their lines. I was like, God, you guys are distracting me. But it was awesome. I mean, every day I'd get up in the morning at 6 a.m. I'd work out. At 7, we would all go downstairs here where we live in our apartment and get picked up by a big van. And they'd drive us over to Brooklyn because we're in Manhattan. And the stages, you know, the set was in Brooklyn, a studio. And we would get some food and, you know, get going. And I was composing my kids did the songs, but I did the score, you know, the underscore. So I had set up a little composing computer and all that with an assistant on the set as well as here at home. So just depending on what I had to do, if I wasn't in the scene that time, I'd run up and start composing for whatever episode we were working on. Then they would say, okay, you got to be in this scene. I got to run down and get ready to go. So it was exciting as hell. And my sons got to have their friends be in it with them, you know, so that it was based on my son Nat when he was in preschool, which means he was 3 or 4, he had a little band and none of them could really play. They just pretended to play and he would write these songs. So some of them were in the show. It was fantastic, man.
Sounds amazing.
It was really great. I mean, it was a lot of pressure to deal with Nickelodeon and all the suits and all the issues and money. You know, each episode was, it was like a 22-minute episode or something like that. But you know, it was difficult to get it done, and we had 3 or maybe 4 days to do each one. But it was so much. It was so great for our family, and it did change our kids. I mean, they became wildly famous when they were young with kids, you know, because everybody watched that show when it was a hit. It was on for 3 years, and they learned how to work hard, man. They worked really hard, you know. Every night at dinner, we'd sit around, learn our lines, and then they could go hang out, because we arranged it so they mostly shot in the summer, and they could still go to regular school, which was important to us.
Yeah,
but it was great, man. And then they toured a lot with their band, you know. Their music, which they were developing more and more and more, and so you know, I think for our family, I don't think there's ever been a family that's gotten to do that, to work together like that. And I think it was, we probably don't even know how close. We're all still really close. It doesn't mean it's always perfect, because we're still parents and they're still kids, you know, and whatever those issues are, but we're super close and we love each other. And my sons are best friends, you know, even though they fight. They don't physically fight anymore, but they used to.
Yeah.
But they're just great. It's great. So I think it was, I mean, I owe my wife, who created the show and was the showrunner and the writer director. She just created this thing because my oldest son at one point said, I want to be a child actor. And she goes, no way, you're not going to go. Because she's an actor. She goes, I'm not going to send you out there to audition and have these horrible rejections. And so she just came up with this whole idea, and it worked out great.
A wonderful life lesson. You know, if you want to do something, just make it yourself, make it happen.
And, you know, with my kids with music, I never wanted to make them study music. So I just had instruments around. They come to my gigs, and then at a certain point, they'd beg me, oh, can I take piano lessons? And then I'd get them a teacher. I didn't want to teach them. And it was usually they're about 6 years old. It wasn't like shoving it in their face, you know. And then later on, they both wanted to do guitar. So, you know, one of the things we had in the Naked Brothers band is all the band, each show was based on a song, featured a song, and it was kind of based around it. And at one point or another, they're performing the song. So the songs were already recorded. We would record them during the year before each season, you know, of shooting.
Yeah.
With professional musicians, and then my kids, but not the other kids. So we had, on the set, we had 2 music teachers. So when they were free, they'd be studying music, you know, studying their instruments, studying so they could lip sync the thing. So it was really fun.
What an absolute blast. Well, Michael Wolff, thank you so much for coming on the Jazz podcast. It's been amazing to sit and talk to you. You have done a lot, and it's been great to try and cram as much into our show as we can.
We talked enough about jazz. We didn't even talk about harmony and all that. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, yeah. I'm really glad that you have this podcast. Congratulations to you and having a baby and playing, and maybe I'll get to hear you play sometime.
That would be amazing.
Is your album on Spotify or what?
Yes, it is actually.
What's the title of the album?
It's called Gods of Apollo.
Called what?
Gods of Apollo.
Gods of Apollo. I love that.
Yeah, it's
I'll check it out, man.
Oh, thank you. That's.
I hope everybody will check out this, and you're going to figure out a website, you know, on that.
Yeah. That's your memoir. On
can
that
can you guys do Amazon in England? I don't even know how it works.
Yeah, we can. We got that.
Well, that's really the best place to get it. Though there are other online places to get it.
Yeah.
But if you just go on that note, Michael Wolff with 2 Fs, you know, you'll find it.
Fantastic.
And you can get it in paperback, hardcover, or Kindle.
Beautiful. Great stuff. Right. We shall finish with the tune Allison from your.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Swirl. From your 20. Yeah. From Swirl. You said it.
That one went to #1 at Jazz Radio. I was really proud of that. My first album to do that.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad you told us.
I don't mind bragging about it, because I did 19 other albums that didn't go to #1. So, you know.